Hi guys, hi everyone. I thought I would make another video, well, audio video mostly, about something I'm going to update on my blog, Koude blog about Chris and Lisanne disappearance. It is a review of a book from a woman called Nina von Rönne. And she stayed with the tour guide, who I call F, by first letter of his first name. And she and her boyfriend stayed with him and his family in their house in the second part of 2015 and the start of 2016. I knew her name because she was interviewed or mentioned by Jeremy Cright from the Daily Beast already back in 2016, 2017. And she told him, I cover it on my blog, but she told him several things that I now found back in this book. For instance, that the tour guide may be small in size, but that he's strong as an ox, that she saw him lift huge heavy bags of coffee beans like it was nothing, and how he picked her up to look how much she was weighing, which she didn't feel very comfortable about. And she also already told him about noticing that the tour guide has a preference, in her view, of female tourists for his hikes. He doesn't like to just host male tourists. And within the female category, he has a preference for Northern Eastern European women, and he dislikes American tourists, apparently because they are difficult, arrogant, and out for a bargain. Well, not my words. So anyway, I bought the book. Let's be clear, I did not get it. I have never spoken to Nina von Rönne. I just bought it, and I thought, well, since she actually went to Boquete and stayed there for quite a long time, and all that time was around this tour guide, directly living next to him basically, and interacting a lot with him, it will be interesting to see, or to read in this case, what her experiences were. It is a book. It's basically like a collection of journal entries. Well, you never know with books how much has been added later, but it reads as if she just selected the most interesting journal entries she wrote at the time. And it is a very good read, actually. I really liked it. I only selected the parts. Well, in my summary, I give the broad lines of what she tells and the broad lines of the story, why they went to Panama and why they went back again to France. But I highlighted, of course, the parts about this tour guide and about the disappearance of Chris and Lisanne. So I skip a lot. Feel free to buy the book for yourself. It's only in French available. I speak French, so for me it was not really a problem to look up a couple of words, but for the most part it was an easy read for me. But yeah, I'm not sure if she's ever gonna translate it in English, maybe. So I hope it's okay that I give the highlights here. Yeah, usually I only write on my blog. I do it semi-anonymous, obviously. But yeah, I just noticed recently there are a couple of YouTubers who just, one in particular, who just take so much of my work, all my videos that I translated to make his own videos, and then that's okay, but I mean, just mention my name or a link to my YouTube channel maybe as one of the sources he used. None of that. In the second video he didn't do it either. And I don't know, and I'm really happy that anyone uses the information I gathered or wrote to just bring more awareness to this case, or just take it as a starting point for their own investigations or theories. It's all fine. I mean, the only thing I ask, I do this all in my free time, without any form of sponsoring or buy me a coffee, none of that. I ask nothing for it, even if people offer me money, like how can we support you? No, just send something to animal shelters or whatever. But the only thing I do like is when people use, because it took a lot of time, like I've got a busy life and I did everything in my free time. The only thing I ask is like make like a little nod to me, or my name even, or just the name of my blog. That's enough. But apparently that is too much to ask for some people. So I don't know what's behind that. Maybe they just want to make it look like they did it all themselves. So anyway, it's very annoying, because I don't really like to make videos. I'm not very professional with this whatsoever. I just like to write and put it on my blog. But I suspect that once I put this, it's not just a review, it's just a summary basically of this book on my blog, someone will use it and make a YouTube video about it. And I can't do anything about it because, yeah, complaints do nothing. So anyway, let's cut to the crap. I'll just start with a summary for the YouTube audiences. So yeah, what I finished my blog entry with is like basically a prediction of the comments that might come, because I'm sure that there is within the community of people who follow this case and who like to brainstorm about which theory is more likely. There are basically two extremist groups. The extreme ones on the left who think it's all a case of accident, loss, and the other ones on the other side who are completely convinced it was a crime. I'm in that camp, to be honest. I mean, we're not talking about camps, that's also a trigger word apparently, but I think that there will be a lot of people from the other side who will read this or listen to this review and will just call her a fantasist or say that there's no evidence, she's making it up, or the good old one, she's trying to milk it for money. And my impression, again, I have never spoken to her, it's just my neutral impression, is that this is a sincere book about her experiences. She tried to contact the Dutch embassy with this story when they came back to France. She contacted Jeremy Cried about it. I think she sincerely feels that we're dealing with a killer here who can strike again, and that she wants to warn people. But I don't think she herself is very active on any forums or whatever. So this is probably her contribution, and we can do with it whatever we want. So anyway, this woman, she was about 30 when she went to Panama with her boyfriend. She calls him Andy. It's not his real name, but it doesn't really matter. She I think she changed a few names, but her own name is used. Nina van Rönne. She's dual French-German, and from the photos I've seen, I'd say she's a real classical beauty, very cool, beautiful look, blonde, green eyes, a beautiful face, beautiful figure. And she's like the arty type, so she has done work as a photographer, as a model. She makes drawings, she makes art, she does jobs on the side. She's basically living a bit of a more free creative lifestyle. And at the start of the book she describes how she met her current partner, she called Andy, who is an engineer from Brittany, which is in the northwest of France, this province. Well, you may know it from the Second World War stories, which was mostly Normandy, but also some Brittany. Anyway, he's from Brittany, And she is originally from an island, tropical island called Guadeloupe, which belongs to France. It's one of the overseas territories, but it has an Antillean vibe. So it's French, but it's of course Caribbean. So it has a very different culture. And she describes how her upbringing was and how she actually feels really at home in the tropics. She went, like a lot of young people, went to Paris then to study. But because Andy loves to travel abroad as well, and she as well, they start to think in the spring of 2015 about just packing up and looking what possibilities there are to move to Latin America, to see if they can start a life there. Brittany has this regional dish. It's a sort of pancake. It's a crêpe breton. It's not a sweet pancake, or it can be, but it is made from it's not wheat, but it's buckwheat, I think it is. It's a bit of a dark grain. Gives a really distinct taste. It's quite nice. You can put all sorts of stuff on it. Eggs, bacon, sweet stuff. You have I've eaten it a lot, and you can actually have a long list of stuff you can put on it. It's very nice. And they thought about starting a restaurant in one of the Latin American countries, selling these special pancakes. And Andy's also a very good surfer, so at some point they also think about maybe starting a surf school or whatever. So initially they go for a 3-month trip through several Latin American countries. They start in Panama. They at some point drive all the way to the south of Mexico, and they explore different countries. But they basically decide pretty quickly that they like Panama best, because it has a lot of expats, American expats, who have a lot of money. So, I mean, if you want to start some European restaurant thing, you need paying customers, and some countries are more poor than others, but also because, they really like Panama's nature, culture, and Boquete, as we probably all know by now, has this different ecosystem where if you go to Panama, to the coast, it can be really warm, in the 30 degrees and up Celsius. But Boquete has this elevation and is a lot cooler, and they really like that. I mean, it's not cold, but it is maybe 10 degrees cooler, and you have this beautiful mountains, lush. They really like it. She describes things. At some point, she gives anecdotes, which I really liked, because I think it shows a little bit what they're like. For instance, when they are invited by some locals for a fishing trip, these locals, they have this delicacy. They hunt down these baby turtle eggs, which they poach, and it really makes them very sad, Nina and Andy, because they love nature, they love baby turtles, so why would you eat their eggs? And she makes comments about the plastic that washes all over the beaches, and how it makes her sad to see that a lot of the natural forests are just destroyed to plant oil palm trees for our Western palm oil ingredients in lots of cookies and stuff. So she's very, I don't know, I got the impression she's very observant, and she has some moral compass. And it was very interesting to read, actually, because it was not just about meeting the tour guide. It was also just their impressions as a young, in-love couple traveling around, and just with the eyes of Europeans, clearly, but it's very interesting to read. I thought I liked it. She also wrote that they chose Panama because it is a politically stable country, so not as dangerous, and with the lowest crime rate of all the countries in the region. So based on that, they first went back to Brittany for a wedding, and the family of Andy they are all, I wouldn't say snobs, but well, the father is a doctor, and the mother has very high expectations, and somehow she doesn't like Nina. And yeah, I can tell a little bit that Nina felt a little bit, well, she gave her the mom-in-law a bit of a mean name. I think she felt a little bit, maybe that's a bit of a red string through the book, that sometimes she feels that she isn't taken for full value or something, that she has to prove something. Maybe because, well, if you live the artist lifestyle, there are always going to be people who look down or who find it very suspicious. So yeah, I know from personal experience. So anyway, they go back to Bouquet to start a house hunt, because they want to find a place to rent, and not just to live, but also to set up their creperie, their crepe store. Nina, she describes Bouquet as very charming, green, and she says it's one of the most touristic towns in Panama. So yeah, we heard that before, but it's important to realize probably that of all the touristic places, Bouquet is among them and has a lot of income from tourism. She also called it the agricultural attic of Panama, you know, because it has these cooler temperatures, it has a high humidity, it's basically perfect for coffee farming, and the coffee there is among the best in the world. She also described, which I also found interesting, that when they're first in Bouquet and they make this mountain hike, just in the mountains towards, I think it was the hidden waterfalls, but it was at an elevation, but not that high. It was about 1800 meters. They both got sick, and she was really vomiting, that sick she felt. And they found it a bit strange, because the symptoms matched mountain sickness, but the height was only 1800 meters, and she had been trekking through Peru in the past at least 4,000-meter high mountains without any problem. So I had to think instantly, of course, of Lisanne, who wasn't feeling well in Bouquet. So maybe there's something special about the mountains there. I mean, not in a paranormal way, but maybe it's a certain combination of a certain height with a certain level of humidity or something like that. Then she describes how they met this tour guide F, and she calls him Diego in the book, but it's 100% the guide F. They meet him on October 8th of 2015 while they sit in a hostel, and they're basically still looking for a good place. They stay somewhere, but they don't really like it. And this guide is there with one of his female clients, and they start to chat because they don't know that many people yet in Bouquet. And instantly it strikes them that he's there with a young solo female tourist, attractive tourist, and the two of them do the Baru volcano hike. And this guide already tells Nina then that he's very proud that he regularly takes tourists there on nightly tours while carrying torchlights, and that he goes for 3-day tours sometimes, all the way through old native trails to, she calls it El Castillo at the Caribbean coast. Well, because some names are changed, maybe she means Bocas. I couldn't really find El Castillo on the map, obviously. Well, there were some local place, but not like a town or a village. So anyway, it is the 3-day tour, probably from Bouquet through the mountains to the Bocas area. And he knows a lot of trails and all the corners of all these surrounding mountains, Nina writes. And she's also interested in such a hike. When she tells him that they are looking for a place to rent, this guide F, he says he wants to help them, and they exchange phone numbers, and 3 days later already he calls them and offers them the house of his sister, which they name Carla. I'm not sure if she's really called Carla, but let's go with Carla. So the couple is enthusiastic. Andy wasn't really taken with the guide initially, but well, they drive up there. It is a 3-kilometer drive winding through the mountain roads. And they arrive at these. There are a couple of houses. It's in the mountains. It has the coffee plantations, which he owns or inherited from his father. So he has his own house there where he lives with his wife, who has since passed away, by the way, but they call her Angelica. Then there is also another house which is from Carla, or it is not from her, but they use it, Carla and her partner and kids. It may be of them, but they are during the week in a town called David, where they work in a car part shop, but she's only there in the weekend. So they arrange that they can rent 2 of the rooms of that house and, well, some other, the bathroom and stuff. And every weekend, Carla and her family use the other part of the house. So it's a great setup. Next to them on the other side lives the mother and the father of the tour guide, together with his youngest sister. So it is a bit of a family corner, surrounded by these beautiful coffee plantations. And yeah, they feel right at home because it has beautiful views. It has a little river running next to the house. It looks out on these plantations, on the mountains, on the green. The mother is very friendly to them. Carla, not so much. And the tour guide is very friendly as well. He comes by all the time for a chat or to ask them if he can help with something. So Nina, at some point, she picks up a friendship with him. So when she needs something, or when she's just, I don't know, bored is not the right word, but when she feels like just walking in the gardens there, they often catch up and just chat. And he calls himself their friend also. She writes that this guide has 5 cats and 4 dogs by then, 2 of which are skinny and attached to chains of only 2 meters long. And she's a bit sad about that, but she says they get fed, and it's a cultural thing probably. She also describes how this tour guide keeps the preserved coat of a black panther in his house. Yeah, so there are black panthers in the area probably. They also visit the thermal hot springs at the caldera every week actually. And she describes how they are actually on private terrain, and how the owner charges them $2 every time they go in there. But it's beautiful. There are several bassins with water at around 40 degrees Celsius, so very nice. And then there's the cool river nearby. We have seen the photos because of the swimming photo, which may or may not show the girls, Chris and Lisanne. So yeah, it starts off well, but then Nina starts to describe how this tour guide F is becoming touchy with her, and she doesn't like it. So he starts to touch her more often. He looks her up, head to toe, with this, I don't know, grin and glimmering in his eyes, she writes. And but at the same time, she gives it all the benefit of the doubt, because she remembers that the people in Guadeloupe are also more touchy than those in Paris, for instance. So it may be a cultural thing that she grew out of when she moved to France. But she also notices at the same time that this tour guide F becomes more distant, actually, as time goes by, towards Andy, her boyfriend. And she describes that F left school at an early age to help his father work the coffee plantations. But now these coffee plantations don't make enough money. And basically he gets most of his money as a tour guide, which he also really likes. But he charges quite a lot of money, she says, up to $40 for, a few hours hike. And if you have a tour at his coffee farm, where he shows you the plantations, shows you the coffee making process, has you taste all the coffee, I think she mentioned up to 120 euros for 2 people, so American dollars, I mean, sorry, not euros, of course. Quite a bit of money, and he actually makes a lot more these days, she says, from his tour guide work, which he really likes. He also has this thing where he has a lot of European guides, tour guides, where he's mentioned as a tour guide, and that's what he get a lot of clients from, without interference of a tour organization. So that way he does not have to pay them a portion of his earnings, and he explained that to Nina. So yeah, he had a good business going. He also speaks decent English, a bit of German, and some Dutch even. Nina, she writes that over time she noticed, like I already said a bit in the intro, that he has this preference for European female tourists, sometimes Canadian ones, Dutch, German, Northern European, Eastern European, Americans not so much. He is barely ever seen venturing off with only male tourists. She says all the tourists that he shows around, sometimes for 1 day, sometimes for a 3-day hike, he always either picks them up in his 4x4, his green 4x4 car, or he has them come to his place. So it's not like he meets them at the trailhead of a trail. That's not his thing. So maybe an interesting detail for something sometime, I don't know. I thought I'd point it out. Well, like I already said, he's only 1 meter 65 centimeters in height, but very strong, a real force of nature, capable of walking very fast and for long times through the mountains without getting tired. Then in November of 2015, Nina and Andy see him with another female tourist, a Czech one, very pretty, travels alone in Latin America, and who spent 4 days and nights with tour guide F, slept at his place. And Nina describes that she and Andy noticed that the two are obviously flirting with one another. They don't hide it, and they joke that they actually suspect they have an affair because of the way they look, and they glance at each other. It was a sort of closeness. It was awkward for them to see. Yeah, he charges $120 for a whole day of hiking. At some point they ask him, because he doesn't eat that much, and they ask him, like, how can you eat so little when you have so much physical exercise with all your tours? And then Guide F says that on his mountain tours he finds plenty of fruits to keep him going. The jungle there is full of food, basically. So another little detail, you know, sometimes people say, yeah, once you're lost on one of these trails in the mountains, you're gonna starve within days. But no, I don't think so. I mean, there's so much to eat, basically. I mean, you need fresh water, obviously, but yeah, the guide he gets his food from nature when he's on a hike. Nina's still very positive about him, but yeah, she finds him a bit touchy and a bit like a panther. She feels like they are watched when they are there, and when her boyfriend is away for surfing a few days with a friend and she stays there alone, she's actually so afraid to sleep at night alone that she literally bars every door, every window, and she barely sleeps because she's so afraid. So yeah, I will not cover everything I write in my blog analysis, because it would get a really, really long video then, but you can read it for yourself. I'll add the link below this audio video. Another thing I found interesting, this guide, his wife had 2 daughters and a son. They are his stepchildren. and his stepson has been implicated by some people and by some sources from Boquete as a person of interest in this, together with the guide. His name starts with an H. And there's one incident described in the book where, this son was very aggressive, very unpleasant to be around. And they witnessed him actually having a fight with a neighbor about something that happened with one of the dogs. And he was raging. He got so fired up. This is a youth, basically. But he got so fired up by rage that he went into the house to pick up a long, sharp machete. He came out of the house again and he made death threats at the neighbor while everyone was standing there. So Nina and Annie were getting really afraid, and they walked away from the whole thing. And this guy Dev, he seemed annoyed by his son's behavior, and but he didn't know what to do in order to calm him down. So it was a very bizarre atmosphere, and the couple suspected there was some family secrets maybe, or anyway, it was in their view it was not normal. So yeah, he can have a bit of a temper and I would say a violent streak, but maybe it's completely normal there to get your machete out when you're having a disagreement. I don't know. So basically from there it goes downhill. They adopt a puppy, and the puppy, after a few weeks, gets very sick, starts to vomit all the time. They see the vet, but whatever he does, nothing works, and the puppy is like completely wasting away and then dies. A beautiful dog. I've got photos also, and yeah, it's very sad to read, because the couple were really besotted with him, and he seemed like a real beautiful character of a dog. So they get really sad about that, and they don't understand why he got so sick. Their car breaks down. Then they get into a fight with Carla, the sister, because they confided, because all the time this tour guide F says, "Don't worry, I'm your friend." That's also the title of the book in Spanish, and or in French then, but he said it in Spanish, of course. And they confided in him that because they, to make ends meet, they had an Airbnb ad for the second room. And yeah, only this guide F knew that these were not personal friends visiting, but they actually charged them some money. He was also the only one who knew that they sometimes smoked a few herbs. They made sure there was nothing in the house and no one could smell it. But when they came back from a few days at the coast, this Carla, she put all sorts of locks on the door. They couldn't get in their own place, basically. And they had this heated discussion with her and the partner, and she basically accused them of being cheats, of selling her place for Airbnb, for being drug users, and they wanted them out as soon as possible. And they are like, what the fuck, where are we going? And they had to pay. They were locked in with the family. They couldn't go out unless they paid a month's worth of rent. So they had to negotiate, because they had to go out right away. So, right, pay another month. And the guy keeps saying, "Yeah, don't worry, I'm your friend." And they start to really feel that he betrayed them, and that because he always said he didn't get along with his sister, they didn't like each other. But somehow, when they came back from a few days away, everything had changed. He also describes, which I found interesting, there are a couple of people I discussed this case with, of course, with Juan, but also with Dave Mullen and Power Pixie, I really like them, and we email sometimes about theories and stuff. And they've always said, like, it's almost like you can't trust the people there, not in general, but like with Chris and Lisanne, somehow they were let down a lot. They were let down at the school where they thought they had an appointment to go work. They were let down in a way by the host mother, who didn't ring on the alarm and just, okay, they didn't come home, okay, they're not here the next day. They were let down a bit by the school in a way. I mean, Ingrid was away, Marjolein left, and they were stuck with Eileen, who was only there for a few days, who wasn't at her working space a lot. And I think I agree that they were not treated in the most welcoming way, perhaps. So this is echoed by Nina, because they meet several people, and it was all on the outside, so hi, and we can help. And so there's this guy she calls Paolo, who probably has a different name, but he has he's the manager there in Boquete of the artisan market, and he offers to help them find a place for their creperie. But every time he comes with something, it's like a humiliating offer for a lot of dollars. And when they find a woman or a girl who's also having a stand on this artisan market, and she said, oh, we can share the stand, and then you only have to pay $150, and I don't need the whole stand. And they're like, okay, great. Then Paolo barges in and is like, no, I'm not having it. If you want something, you have to pay $350. And they pretend to be your friend to help you, but in the end he was basically squeezing them out. So at some point they get really demoralized that nothing really kicks off or something. They can't find the right spot for the right price. So they're kicked out of the house of tour guide F's sister. They can't find a spot to work, so at some point they just leave Boquete, but not until Nina basically gets, when they're kicked out of the house of the sister, then the tour guide first offers them to stay in his house with his wife and him, just to help out, which seemed like a really kind, nice offer. But then again, Nina feels watched when she goes out of her room one night. The guide is there in the hallway and like eyeing her up again, and like, are you going to sleep already? And she just feels not safe. And he keeps having these really young female tourists. One time Andy's gone again, and the guide invites her to come along with this other couple on a tour. And she feels just threatened and afraid because he gets touchy. And then he somehow cancels the Baru trip with the couple. Nina wasn't gonna come due to bad weather, and there was no bad weather, but he just wanted to spend the night with her. And when she said, okay, sorry, but I'm going out with some other friends, he got really persuasive and doing the puppy eyes, and it was just a bit unprofessional, I guess, a bit much. But it really kicks off when this wife of him, Angelica, who passed away since, she opens up to Andy about how miserable she is. So I think this is like the core of Nina's suspicions, I guess. So Angelica, she tells Andy that the guide makes a lot of money, but he doesn't spend it on the family or on the house, which is crumbling away. No, instead he uses it to go to prostitutes in David, because he has some sexual thing where he needs it twice a day or whatever, like really high sex drive. She knows that he cheats with some of the tourists. She says he charges up to $100 for a couple to spend 2 hours on his coffee plantation, but somehow the money never ends up with her. Angelica herself is sick. She has some mystery illness, but she has to clean the houses of rich American expats for pennies, to support the family. So she's really sad about that, and she feels humiliated. Also, when she knows that these female tourists he takes for 2-3 days hike and under her nose act like that. She was sad and a bit desperate when she talked about it. So she has some illness, but somehow whatever the doctors do, it doesn't help. And she felt, Angelica, that some shamanic therapist, which they call Brujo, B-R-U-J-O, Brujo, I think. I'm sorry, guys, I don't speak Spanish. But she felt that the shaman brought her some relief. Then at some point, when they left Boquete, they themselves go to a shaman as well, because by then the dog died, the car broke down, Nina has all sorts of pain in her lower back, nothing helps, and I think she feels bewitched in a way. She doesn't say it like that, but they don't feel safe anymore there. And what also spiked this is there was an incident where a group of tourists got lost in the mountains near Boquete. And this was when they were still staying with the family. And the tour guide, he told Nina with a grin on his face that these tourists were lucky to have been found again. And he, quote, said, "It's not like with those idiot Dutch women." He said it quite snarky. And that's, Nina says that, well, she didn't know much about that case. She had seen it in passing the year before in the news, but she didn't pay any attention really to it. But that's when she started to Google it, the Dutch woman. And that's when she started to get really the shivers. I think, I mean, we can say that she comes to unfounded assumptions, but to her it was putting one and one together. So she says these were also striking, typically Northern European looking girls. She calls them that to have the look of femme fatales who only just recently discovered life. Well, I mean, they were really pretty, of course, and very innocent. She also, when she reads up, she does not believe the official verdict that they were attacked and killed by wild animals, which was still on the internet back in 2015-16. She goes into a whole chapter about all the theories about the Chris and Lisanne case. She basically says, I don't believe that both of them fell off a ravine. I don't believe that both of them drowned. I mean, one okay, but not two. I don't believe that a wild animal killed both of them. The way the backpack was found, it does not support any of that. So, well, we all know those arguments, but she agrees with that. Then she comes with a very interesting anecdote, I thought, because, well, she's from Guadeloupe, which is also tropical. Her mother has a hiking group, and she recalled that one of the guys in her hiking group once killed a snake up in the mountains there by smashing its head on a rock. He left the snake body on a stone, and within 1 hour, the entire snake was eaten away by a colony of ants, which were typical tropical ants. So Nina, therefore, has some question marks about the body parts of Chris and Lisanne surviving for that long, especially the foot of Lisanne, which was found intact, not eaten away by ants, after supposedly 3 months in the jungle. She also says it's very humid, it had lots of rainfall there, the backpack, the food, it does not look really like what you would see in Guadeloupe, for instance, if a body was 3 months out there. Something else, they recall that, well, Andy's an engineer, but he also knows a lot about agriculture and gardening and everything. He says these phosphates that were found on some of the bones, that they are actually used very often by farmers, well, to help decompose stuff. But they actually, when they were staying near the tour guide, they saw often on his terrain bags of 25 kilograms of phosphates at Gaidev's place. That's also something they made a mental note of. And the more they think about it, the more Nina especially becomes convinced that this tour guide was all over the case. She finds it very strange that he made this free time to go look for Chris and Lisanne on day 3 when he was told not to by Sinaproc, because she says, well, he had day 2 off to look in their room and go to the police. He had day 3 off to go look for them somewhere only he knew they were going, obviously. While when they were at his place, he was basically always busy with tourists, and he charged so much money for tourists. They barely saw him a day doing nothing. So what was his motive to make all this time now for these girls? I mean, in one version of events, in one newspaper article interview, he said he did meet them before, and he said hola when one was in the hammock, and in another he said he never met them. Apparently he never met them, so what is his motive to be so involved and go through their stuff in their room? And I mean, Nina is just getting very suspicious, and she has seen him with similar type of tourists, female tourists, young, athletic, beautiful. When Andy asked him about it, he said, the tour guide said with shiny eyes, yes, I like beautiful tourists. And, there was some vibe going on, and she just thinks that Chris and Lisanne fitted just right in that picture. And basically, she thinks that the tour guide and his son kidnapped them and abused them. So the thing with this book is there is no hard forensic evidence provided. But that is basically the whole tragedy of this story. I know there's some people out there who say that Bedside Pity did a fantastic job and she couldn't have done anything different and she did everything by the book. Well, I think that's nonsense. I think she did a very lousy job. This tour guide, for instance, I mean, really, he should have been one of the prime suspects just to rule him out. Why didn't they go through his telephone? It wasn't done. I know from people who have seen all the case files, it wasn't done. They didn't look at his Google searches. They didn't look where his phone pinged. They didn't look for his alibi on the day these girls went missing. It just wasn't investigated. His houses weren't searched. His terrain wasn't searched. There was no luminal use. There was nothing. So he was giving a complete free pass, but in a way, he wasn't, because he wasn't excluded either, because he wasn't investigated properly. I mean, it may be actually at his own disadvantage, because if he's innocent, he also wasn't granted, the privilege of being interrogated and excluded as a suspect. So, yeah, there are some people who say this guy's innocent, and it's just horrible that people can say these things without any evidence. But then I say, well, there's no evidence, but whose fault is that? Just because what if no one interrogated Ted Bundy? No one knows if he did it, for instance. Can we not make a case then against him just because he wasn't investigated properly? So, well, how I stand in this. But yeah, the book is very interesting. I think as a person who actually went to Bogat, who actually lived there, who actually met this guide, not just for a day, but for a long time, like at least half a year, and has first-hand experience, I think this is an interesting source. Does it solve the case? I would say no, but I think for people who already have their suspicions, it will solidify that. And for people who already made up their mind that it was all a bad freak accident and somehow nobody found them, well, it will just be something to laugh about, probably. I hope you guys won't laugh about it, because, well, one guess is as good as another. We just don't know for a fact, and maybe this author is right. You don't know. Anyway.